Hi, and welcome to Series 3 of the Australia Academy Dern History Revision podcast. This series is going to focus on early Elizabethan England. As always, this will be a collection of around 5 to 8 minutes of podcast focusing on different aspects of the Elizabethan course. It's not meant to replace your regular revision sessions. What it's here to do is to fill in those little gaps on the way to school, before your tea's ready, little things like that. Don't forget, if you find this useful, we do have a Series 1 and Series 2. Series 1 focuses on medicine and the Western Front, and Series 2 focuses on Weimar and Nazi Germany. There will be a Cold War episodes coming soon once I've finished the Elizabeth session. Okay, let's get started. This is episode 3, and this is going to focus on the main plots to remove Elizabeth and put Mary, Queen of Scots, on the throne. For each plot, I'm going to focus on 3 areas: who's involved, what the plan was, and ultimately what the results were. As we know, all 4 of these plots failed, so we'll look at what actually happened to the people involved and how Elizabeth maybe changed her attitudes at this time. Now, I think what might be a good idea, actually, if I split these into 2 separate episodes. So we'll call this one episode 3A, and we'll look at the first 2 plots, and then I'll do another podcast focusing on the second 2 plots, or the third and the fourth plot. So the first plot is the Revolt of the Northern Earls. Now, this happens in 1569. Now, that date is significant because it's 1 year after Mary has arrived in England. So now the Catholics have got somebody they can focus their attention on, someone they can now replace Elizabeth with, as opposed to Mary when she was up in Scotland, when she was out of sight, out of mind. The reason why this plot happens is because the Catholic lords are starting to get a little bit cheesed off with Elizabeth. They're losing land, they want Catholicism returned to England, they want their titles returned. They're not happy with the way they're being treated. Now, we're focusing on 3 main people here. The first one, Thomas Percy, he's the Earl of Northumberland. Then we've got Charles Neville, who's the Earl of Westmoreland. And then you've got the main one, which is Thomas Howard. Now, he's the Duke of Norfolk. The key thing about him, he's a Protestant. He's not a Catholic. So he's joined this plot from sort of left field. No one really expects a Protestant to be sympathetic towards his Catholic plot, but he plays a significant part. So the plan, really straightforward. Mary will marry Norfolk, therefore marrying a Protestant, giving her a greater claim to the English throne, and strengthening those chances of her taking the crown. They'll remove Elizabeth from power, reinstate a Catholic monarch in Mary, and the Spanish put their support behind this. So the Spanish said that if it doesn't go right, they will come in and they will help. It doesn't work. We know that. Okay, so the result is, first of all, Norfolk is arrested quite early on. Okay, so he's out of the picture. Now, Westmoreland and Northumberland decide to continue with the plot despite the fact they've lost one of their conspirators. They march in Durham and they hold a Catholic mass in the Cathedral of Durham. Mary is moved prison. She's sent to Coventry to get her out of the way, just in case anyone's thinking of trying to break her out of prison. And the Spanish troops don't turn up. They're supposed to come and help, then they're a no-show. Because of this, the English troops then come in and 450 rebels are executed. Westmoreland manages to get away, but Northumberland's not as lucky. He's one of the 450 that are executed. Norfolk, who obviously was arrested before it really started, gets a little bit of sympathy from Elizabeth, and so he's actually released by Elizabeth, okay, because she kind of thinks that maybe he wasn't involved as much. The big result actually happens a little bit later. Okay, so in 1570, the Pope issues his papal bull excommunicating Elizabeth and telling all the Catholics in England, you need to choose your church over your monarch. Okay, this is, I don't want to call it a declaration of war, but this is essentially the Pope laying down that he doesn't believe that Elizabeth should be the Queen. He thinks Mary should be on the throne, and he's putting that in the minds of the Catholics in England. He's making them choose, which probably isn't really fair. This is going to have a major impact on Elizabeth and the way she views the Catholics at this point. We wait a year, and 1571 we get our second plot, and this is the Ridolfi Plot. Now, named after Ridolfi, okay, an Italian banker who's used to moving around Europe, wouldn't really raise any suspicions if he's coming to England and out of England. It's part of his job. He's working again with the Duke of Norfolk, so he hasn't learnt his lesson from the first plot and being shown a bit of sympathy from Elizabeth. So he's involved. Philip II of Spain is also involved, and the Pope is also supporting this as well. Not physically getting involved, but he does throw his support behind this plot. He wants Elizabeth out. The plan, pretty much the same as all the other plans. Spanish will invade. This time they're going to murder Elizabeth. It's not just remove her from power, they're going to actually murder Elizabeth, and they're going to put Mary on the throne. Okay, key thing to remember about all these plots is generally that's the idea. Foreign invasion, remove Elizabeth or kill Elizabeth and put Mary on the throne. They're all pretty very similar. Okay, why doesn't it work? Well, first of all, this is down to Cecil. Okay, Cecil uncovers the plots thanks to coded letters that were randomly found at Dover from a messenger who was about to leave the country to spread the word. Searched at random, and they find the coded letters. Now, Ridolfi's already abroad at this point. He knows the gig is up. He stays abroad. He can't be touched. He kind of gets away with it simply because he's in the right place, if you like. Norfolk is implemented in the letters, and so Elizabeth decides, right, you had your chance, not anymore, and Norfolk is executed. But nothing really happens to Mary. Elizabeth again kind of ignores the idea. There's no real evidence that proves that Mary was involved. Now, this is going to anger people like Cecil, people like that who want Mary out of the way. They want, if Mary's not there, then there's no threats anymore. Okay, but Elizabeth, because she's family, because there's no real hard evidence, Mary is generally ignored. She just stays in prison. There is a key result of the Ridolfi plot because we see a switch in Elizabeth's attitude and Elizabeth's tactics. Okay, she starts to go hard on the Catholics. She's been quite wishy-washy with them. She doesn't want a civil war, so she's been quite nice to the Catholics throughout these first few years of her reign. She's had enough. She's realised that, as nice as she's been, the Catholics have just kept going at her, so I'm done. The fines for not turning up to church are massively increased to the point that people can't afford these fines anymore. If you are caught hiding a Catholic priest in your home, you are now considered committing treason. Okay, so this is no longer a fine or slap in the wrist. You will be executed if you are hiding a priest. And the way that Elizabeth is going to execute you is she's going to use something called pressing. Okay, this isn't going to be a nice quick execution, chopping your head off. You are going to be crushed to death using very small pebbles. It's a horrific way to die. So the reason why I'm going to split it here and I'm going to end this episode here is because we then get a good 12 years before we get the next plot. So it seems the ideal place to stop, and I'll look at the Throckmorton and the Babington plot in the next episode. Okay, just the key thing to note at this point, Elizabeth has now changed. She's no longer Little Miss Nice Girl. She is now going to go in hard on the Catholics. The Catholics have pushed her too far. Okay, thanks for listening.